Hello everyone, welcome to a WWE pay-per-view review from the CC Network. I'm Fred, your ever-reliable host as always, and today we'll be looking back at last night's Payback event broadcast exclusively by WWE Raw that emanated from SAP Center in San Jose, California. Now, last year, Payback was, in my opinion, the pay-per-view of the year, having many high-quality matches and great storyline implications, and of course it was blighted by the one minuscule one of Enzo Amore's legitimate concussion. Now this year's event, held by Raw exclusively, has a lot to live up to, so hopefully it can deliver. Going in, I've got to admit, it hasn't been the best build, and Raw has been nigh on insomnia curing in terms of quality, but then again, the card on paper doesn't look too bad. It should have delivered a decent show overall, right? Well, let's look into this. The theme song was Born to Greatness by Papa Roach, which wasn't a bad song, but outside of the intro to the whole show, it wasn't included in any build-up packages like you would expect a song for a pay-per-view. But hey, what am I going to say? The song wasn't much to my taste anyway, but who cares? We have 7 matches to look at tonight, including one on the pre-show, which saw Enzo and Cass defeat Gallows and Anderson, a match that we've seen way too many times for me to really care, and thankfully it was on the pre-show, because if you don't know, if you're new to the CC Network, I thank you for joining me. The fact is, I don't do the pre-show matches, so there we go. And also not just that, Finn Balor destroyed Miz on Miz TV and said he wanted Brock Lesnar. I say bring it, because that would be pretty damn awesome. Now, with that all out of the way, let's kick on with this. And we start off with the United States Championship match, and a shock win for Chris Jericho, who defeated Kevin Owens off of Walls of Jericho, earning not just the title, but his place on the SmackDown roster after 14 minutes and 4 seconds of action. Now, their WrestleMania match, for me, was a dud. Now, I knew these two could go and deliver if they were given a little more pace and have the intensity show off, along with a hot crowd, to make this match actually feel like it was going to be something. Thankfully, we got all 3 of those, and it turned out to make this match look pretty damn impressive. Jericho wasn't restricted to headlocks and showed his flair and charisma that jacked the crowd up even more than they already were for the hot start of this show, with Owens taking Jericho's head as his primary target and sticking with it, making his toughness and desire to beat Jericho down feel like it was definitely worth seeing, unlike before at WrestleMania when they kind of understated things a bit. Although I have to say, all of that work on Jericho's head was undone because Jericho didn't sell that. Really, but they made up for it by having the finger stunt repeat itself again, allowing Jericho to actually focus on a body part and destroy the hand in the steel steps and cause the inevitable ability to not have the same thing happen again, resulting in that victory. Nice bit of story, and it was pretty damn nice, I've got to say. And overall, the outcome on this match I felt was a bit weird. Jericho winning this match makes no legit sense, but at the same time, if it elongates this and has a massive blow-off at Extreme Rules, or actually in this case Backlash, it should be all fine, really. However, I have to say that the match had a quick start, but slowed in the right places and had enough momentum swinging to ensure it kept going. However, at times I felt it swung a little too often, meaning Jericho got way too much offense, considering, well, he had his head bashed in for a good portion of it. It's just my opinion, of course, but overall, I feel it works out. In a way, Jericho should not have been rebounding as quick without holding his head, showing sluggishness in his facial expressions, and actually not being able to do some of the things, because seriously, he had his head choked and punched and kicked in multiple times. It should have done something. Anyway, I've got to say, this was a lot better than their WrestleMania match, and I've got to say this again, to see these two look like they were destroying each other and had good reason for it was really nice. However, some finesse that was lost made sure that this match lost out on the 3-star mark, but I will give it 2 3/4 stars. Yes, I felt it was a very good match, but even with that, I still want more from these two, and as I've said, they could go on to Backlash to have a rematch with the title on the line in some kind of extreme variant, a stipulation match that could really make Jericho's last spot on the roster feel worth it. But AJ Styles is the #1 contender, so will we get an athletic triple threat match in its place? Maybe a ladder match, possibly? I don't know. All we have to do is just wait until Tuesday to see how that manages to resolve itself. But a pretty solid and good way to start off the show. Let's hope the momentum continues. And there's a good possibility of that happening because we have the Cruiserweight Championship match now, with Aries winning by DQ after Neville, struggling to break the last chancery, punched the referee. As a result, Neville retained the title after 11 minutes and 16 seconds. Now, their match at WrestleMania was one that I wished was on the pre-show because then I could have reviewed it and it would have been great. However, if it wasn't on the pre-show, it would have made this match look quite bad in its shadow. Because I don't review pre-show matches, I would have had to have looked at that amazing athletic contest that happened at WrestleMania and go, how the hell are they going to top that here? The thing is, though, because of that, we actually had this rematch feeling quite refreshing because it focused instead of a visual athletic aesthetic on more the drive of Aries to win at every single possible expense his body could do, taking risks from just about every chance he could get in a move sense while having Neville's ruthlessness come through by targeting his challenger's head throughout, which made the risks that Aries took actually more understandable, with a decent selection of fun moves being the highlight of which the middle rope neckbreaker. I love that. There are some others as well, but that was the major one for me. The crowd were into this and were respectable to both men's styles, with a steady but fast pace going on. The wrestlers kept them invested while ensuring that Neville's character grew, because that DQ actually made sense. He used his wherewithal to get out of the match without having to lose properly. It was worth it, and to be honest, when Aries wins that title, we're gonna all go nuts. So I can't wait to see that. And all in all, the best cruiserweights on the roster may have had a, well, you could say a more restrained performance compared to the WrestleMania showstopper, but the fact is they needed to do that to build the storyline going forward, and that was the good thing. All in all, this is a pretty solid average contest by the two best cruiserweights on the roster. Overall, I can't say much more than that because, well, the next contest where they'll probably pull out all the stops imaginable and crown Aries as the new champion will hopefully usurp this one. But 2.5 stars, it's all pretty good, I've got to say. And considering that most of the cruiserweight matches since the original first TJ Perkins Brian Kendrick match, which I think got 2 3/4 stars back at Clash of Champions, that was the pinnacle. To be honest, this is the closest we've gotten so far, and I'm very, very happy with that. Let's hope their next contest turns out to be just as good, or we could be in some trouble. And with that, the title matches keep on coming, this time with the Raw Tag Team title bout, with the Hardy Boys retaining against Sheamus and Cesaro off a swanton bomb in 12 minutes and 45 seconds. Now, both teams showed respect afterwards, which was lovely, but then Sheamus and Cesaro turned heel, turning on the champions and beating them down and giving Matt a lovely massive bro kick for his troubles. Now, considering most tag team matches on WWE television bore me these days, I'll give both of these teams credit for retaining my interest and creating a very good back and forth thrilling contest out of it. And there's a good reason for it, because in the build-up, we didn't see these two teams face off against each other in a tag team match. They were saving it for this pay-per-view. A 6-person tag, 2 individual singles matches. They didn't need to have these two in a tag team match against each other in the build-up to a pay-per-view. That's how you make a pay-per-view match feel special. And overall, I gotta say, this match felt like it was really special, despite the fact there was no psychology or story, or actually very little moves there. I mean, the white noise from the top will obviously get a 0.5 on the move variety scale, but when you look at it, there was no real story or rhyme and reason. It was a battle of two teams wanting to go at it and see who would win. And inevitably, it was a pretty damn fun contest that had so much energy, pace, and charisma to it that the crowd, well, to put it bluntly, it was the hottest they were all night, outside of Strowman and Bayley, of course. And honestly, they put all other teams on WWE's roster to shame, thanks to their effortless work rate, great teamwork, and just keeping a steady, quick flow to it all. And it was just brilliant. But the fact is that lack of psychology means this match is not rated as good as it should have been. You look at the ratings there, you got 2 2.5s and a 3.5. You add what? Another 2.5 or a 3 on the move and psychology front, you may be looking at a near 4-star match here. The fact is, this needed an extra injection of story to make it feel really good and well-rounded, so to speak. And I'm really disappointed that there wasn't any, but knowing what's just happened at the end of this, we could be in for a really good rematch come Extreme Rules, and it should be a hell of a lot of fun. And speaking of what wasn't fun, Jeff Hardy lost a tooth here, and this match, well, it was a war. These two teams threw everything at each other, and it was hard, it was aggressive, it was intense, it was fast, it It was great, and this match should have been a lot higher than 2.5 stars. It really should have, because if it just had that little bit of story and that bit more move variety from all concerned, we would have been looking at out and out the best match of the night, and sadly, due to that, it's not going to be there. But I'm going to say this, I am looking forward to seeing their next match, because if this was the appetizer, then the main course is going to be just as delicious. And now we get to the final title bout of the evening for the Raw Women's Championship, which saw Bayley lose the title in her hometown, with Alexa Bliss being victorious off a DDT to become the first person to hold Raw and SmackDown's women's titles after 11 minutes and 12 seconds. Now, I have to admit, WWE's booking decisions can be confusing at many times, but why are they so obsessed? Why is Vince so obsessed with having a wrestler in their hometown lose, or in their home country lose? I don't know what sick high Vince gets off this, but maybe it shows sociopathic tendencies, wanting people to be upset in front of their friends and family. I don't know, maybe we know that, maybe we don't. Nonetheless, back to the match here. Bliss looked quite intense and imperious as she wore Bayley down, taunting her and doing what she's been doing for most of the last 3/4 of a year on SmackDown, giving a driven performance and through her charisma, making her less is more strategy of in-ring work look effective, because so many people can call that out as being quite lazy and not showing too much skill. Well, I know we've gotten used to seeing Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch and Charlotte, and actually Bayley, tear up the women's division with ridiculously technical matches. But seeing Alexa Bliss do that without having to do too much and show that she's got a really nice, well-rounded character who is devastating when she hits is a good thing. It's different, and I like that a hell of a lot. The match maintained a fast and steady pace as both women switched momentum to build off Bayley's endurance, but always resulting in Alexa looking strong by not giving in to the crowd's lust for their hometown girl, with the psychology on the head throughout being on and off, effective in making Bayley's loss look not too bad, because she went up against a very aggressive opponent. And that's all well and good. Now, it was a solid match that I felt, though, wasn't comfortable with itself. It didn't have enough room to tell much of a story outside of the head working, there were no risks taken, and outside of the crowd at times, it felt a little flat. And considering these two women are my favourites on the entire WWE roster outside of Asuka, I should have been more happier for this match than I was. It did what it needed to do in making Alexa look like a badass, it made Bayley look sympathetic for the first time in God knows how long, and it was genuine in this case, and all in all, that's all fine, and it produced a solid match, but considering these two, I wanted a lot more, and it needed more time, more energy, and more passion for it to resemble more of what I expected from it. It's a 1 3/4 star match, but for what this could have been, I really was expecting something much different, and considering we've had some really good, decent women's matches on pay-per-view this year, yeah, I've got to say this did not live up to it, sadly. Now we get to the match that everybody wants to hear my opinion on, and I know the internet is divided about it, and I know that if Roman had won in the main event, the criticism surrounding this match would not be as prevalent, am I right? It's the House of Horrors match, which Bray Wyatt won, defeating Randy Orton following interference by Jinder Mahal and the Bollywood Boys in roughly 17 minutes and 10 seconds. Now, we'll never know the official time. Based on what we've saw and some calculations some person made on the internet, this is roughly what the timing was. Again, the Internet Wrestling Database didn't tell me how long it was, so I have no clue. I just found the first time I could and went with it. Oh well, let's look into this match then, shall we? This was a match that I found difficult to review at first, not just because of the fatigue I had of watching, having been up for nearly 24 hours at this point, but the fact that because this match was pre-taped, I wasn't entirely sure where the psychology was coming in, where the match length and pacing was going to fit in, and inevitably, no crowd reactions, so it made it very difficult to really do that. However, I persevered, and as you can see, there are some ratings on the screen there. Now, I want to say this before anyone can say to me, wait, You had difficulties? What the hell are you going to rate this then? I'm going to say that I actually enjoyed this for what it was, a bit of non-traditional pro wrestling storytelling, okay? We had so many athletic contests in the night up until this point. It's good to have something different. And wrestling has done this kind of hokey bullshit for years. And not just the fact that we've seen a lot of this in recent years of Lucha Underground and the Final Deletion and all that saga. Yeah, I know we've seen it done before and done better, but hey, I'll take variety on my wrestling show any day. Because that is important. Look at the best wrestling cards, you have a multitude of different types of matches, different types of competitors, and different types of bloody outcomes, and it's really good. So this is a good thing for me. However, it does not escape my criticism, however, on a critical front. I pondered how these two weren't bloody after being smashed with glass and various utensils. Could have been a knife in there. How could Orton have managed to come out from underneath that fridge and wrestle a match afterwards without much of a sign of bruising or injury on him? I have no idea. Hell, why does the house changing colour actually mean anything? I thought he was going to set it on fire. You know, for poetic justice for what happened to the grave of Sister Abigail. That would have made sense for storytelling, but oh god, nonetheless, I liked the idea of the creepy vibe they were going for. They were trying to go for spooky, scary, they had the music in the background, which actually I admit was pretty damn fine. The thing is though, sometimes those creepy vibes hit, but it missed terribly in other areas, making it feel quite hokey. Overall, the match actually was quite bad, the pre-tape section from a visual perspective, but I turned off my critical brain for most of it and just revelled in the absurdity. However, with Wyatt getting the upper hand in the house, it meant that once they got into the ring, Orton had to be in control to balance momentum of the match and have a really slow pace after the fast insanity of that house beating, and oh, I don't know, considering the fridge spot didn't make sense with Orton no-selling the beating, yeah, that really didn't mean anything to me, and it really hurt the match a little. However, the intensity of it and the aggression of it was good enough for me to amp the psychology rating up a little bit, and I was perfectly fine with that. And honestly, the match did show some good things. It showcased that Orton is a resilient bastard, and he wanted Wyatt to be done with, befitting the hell they've been through up until this point, but overall, seeing Orton come back so quickly, following a fridge falling on him, those things are not bloody light. It just didn't look very pleasing on the eye. That's just my opinion. Oh god, this match. I'm kind of lost for words a little bit here, and that is not a good thing. The crowd, speaking of which, were apathetic. Seriously, I've seen video from inside the arena at the time, they were chanting boring, or this is boring. I'm like, yeah, trying to watch a live video when you've come to watch in-ring wrestling in your face, you're gonna say that, but it's a California crowd, there's some smart guys in there, they're not gonna appreciate just, hey, it's different, just chill and relax, don't give a damn, but hey, they did what they had to do. And outside of Jinder's attack, they really didn't care. But overall, the Jinder attack was pretty good, building on the aggression and intensity that stemmed from their build on SmackDown. And of course, Randy and Wyatt, I've already mentioned, have already shown enough anger and intensity and aggression all the way through this. But all in all, Randy's next opponent through this attack looked very legitimate in the process, with the crowd finally waking up, which is all good. Now, sure, Wyatt won through interference, but if he didn't, I'm pretty sure we all would have rioted. But when I look at this match, having just rambled for the last, 3, 4, 5 minutes, this was an experiment that many would consider a failure. Knowing what I believe it could have been at the height of its weirdness and violence, I actually agree with that statement. However, as a break from the stellar in-ring competition we'd seen on one night, as I've already stated, and having a good laugh while enjoying the madness because I was in some respect entertained by it, this was alright. It was not that good a match, but from a watching perspective, I really didn't have too much to complain about outside of some story inconsistencies. However, it wasn't to the standard that I think WWE would have wanted. They wanted to go with cliches, and doing that didn't really make it work, in my opinion. They tried a little too hard to make this be scary, where it ended up becoming more comical in the process. But the match served its purpose. They showcased weird Bray, resilient Randy, and decisive Jinder. There isn't much more I can say, really. It's a 1-star contest, and I know many of you are going to murder me for giving this anything higher than a 0. You're going to say to me this match was the worst thing ever. Listen, I've seen worse pay-per-view matches this year on this entire pay-per-view circus that WWE have. Remember Rusev versus Big Show, that elongated squash from Fastlane? This match, the House of Horrors, was better than that. And it was better than Owens versus Goldberg on the same damn show. So maybe you should get off your high horse if you think this was the worst pay-per-view match of the whole damn year, because seriously, when you look at the competition it had, it doesn't even come close. Now, in between the House of Horrors pre-tape segment and its in-ring conclusion, we had a match that saw Seth Rollins defeat Samoa Joe, luckily I may add, off a roll-up counter from the Coquina Clutch in 15 minutes and 56 seconds. Now, I felt really sorry for Joe and Rollins here, because they put on a story-rich, physical match that should have gotten more respect. Seth's leg was targeted throughout, and Joe looked like an absolute badass with the most creative ways he could damage that leg. The senton on that leg, oh my god, that was amazing. And even in defeat, he looked incredibly strong, because it wasn't the most convincing of victories for Seth. However, this match, while having a solid and slow but steady pace, had just enough time to substantiate itself overall and tell its story properly. It was all good. All was looking good to possibly a 3-star matchup here, but my enjoyment, as you can see down there, was inhibited because coming off the heels of the videotaped segment of the House of Horrors match, the crowd, outside of maybe 1 or 2 moments, did not seem to give a toss about it. They had this match pegged, many fans did, as being a highly anticipated contest, and I was one of them. But seeing this crowd, who chanted "this is boring" all the time and were just sitting on their hands for the majority of this matchup, just ruined it. They made it devoid of atmosphere, and they made this match feel like an afterthought. Why? Because a pre-taped video segment sucked all your life out? God damn, after that I was all over this match, but the lack of crowd meant that I wasn't invested as much as I should have. Sure, I acknowledge the psychology was there. I love what it was doing. In fact, I gave it a 3.5 rating for good reason, because it worked. And I understand WWE fans nowadays, and wrestling fans in general, like fast-paced matches, and slow, psychology-driven matches like Seth had with Triple H at WrestleMania are not to everyone's taste. But for me, it was worth it. But I can understand maybe the pacing of the match and keeping momentum in Joe's corner was to its detriment. I understand that. But overall, the crowd ruined this, because the in-ring action, for the most part, outside of the pace being a little bit burdensome, was great. The storytelling was great. The story for this match had been built so well that everything that happened in the match made sense. For Seth to win so, well, shoddily on his part and make Samoa Joe still look like a badass was great, because Joe was at his athletic, bruising and imposing best, while Rollins had his in-ring awareness and endurance highlighted well. It did what it needed to do, but the crowd just ruined this. It neuters what potential this match could have been rating-wise. I'm going to give it 2.25 stars, because getting nearly a 4 on the psychology front and averaging out a lowish area on the others does a decent amount of work. However, this should have been a 3-star plus quality match, I'm certain. However, we have to thank the poor timing of the House of Horrors match for this, and I know they're going to face Extreme Rules in what I hope will be a violent, athletic contest that'll please everything I hope for, but god damn, this should have been a lot better than this. And San Jose, you're the ones to blame for it. And finally, we reach the main event, with Braun Strowman defeating Roman Reigns, thankfully, in 11 minutes and 43 seconds. And I got this match prediction wrong, because I thought that they would, keep Roman strong and keep Braun strong by having this end in a no contest, leading to a last man standing match come Extreme Rules. I was proven completely wrong, and I'm very happy for that. This match was a very welcome surprise, because Roman lost clean on pay-per-view in a decisive fashion, and it made valid sense, and I can thank the psychology alongside a rampant Colosseum-like crowd for making it feel like it was a big deal. Now, Strowman was at his imperious and destructive best, throwing Roman around like a ragdoll, while the guy was selling quite well. However, while his comebacks were a little unrealistic, knowing this resilience is part of his character, it worked, not to mention he sold the ribs or arm alongside his facial expressions after pretty much every move. So it wasn't too much of a lost cause, but I have to admit, when he does the ooh, he did not grasp his ribs. He didn't gasp for air midway through them. Little subtleties like that could have made the psychology a little better as far as I'm concerned, but for what I saw, I'm in a good state. Although I have to admit, kicking out of the first running power slam didn't help either, because it would have been better for Strowman to have lifted the injured shoulder up and then delivered it again. You know, little niggles that meant, okay, it could have been much more perfect, but I'm not going to complain. The rabid crowd and the steady but quick pace meant that what would have been an elongated and drawn out squash, it meant that it didn't feel stale at all. And I'm very happy with that, with momentum shifting just enough to where both men got a taste of offense and defense. Skewed strongly in Strowman's favour, of course, but it was all well and good for what the match was trying to do. The match, therefore, did its job. It kept Roman looking good, but a very broken man following this, with Strowman looking nigh on indestructible. Next stop, hopefully for him, outside of maybe one more match at Extreme Rules, is Brock Lesnar, because seriously, Brock Lesnar, that Universal title, if you go up against Strowman, you are going to get killed out there. This match was a fun exercise in character and story building, and it went just the right amount of time, it wasn't too long, and while it hit its peak quickly, it was still enjoyable enough to be one of the best matches of the night with a 2 3/4 star rating. I'm still unsure which is the best match out of this and the US title match, but hey, it's up for debate. Now, this was a nice way to end this show, with Roman Reigns bloodied and a big man we actually like standing strong, because the San Jose crowd saw Bayley lose. I'm just very happy they've ended this night in a good way. And that's a very nice thing to say given the last few pay-per-views where Roman Reigns winning means we all hate everything. I think we're all in a very positive mindset, to say the least. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for me to put my thoughts to bed on this show. Now, I went into this pay-per-view with low expectations because, as I said in the intro, Raw outside of Braun Strowman is insomnia curing. Because seriously, I've had some really good night's sleep just watching Raw because it's been that boring, ladies and gentlemen. That being said, though, I'm quite surprised at how well-balanced, stable, and decent this show was. I got all but 2 of my predictions wrong, which meant, okay, I was immediately going to have my intrigue spiked up because how the hell is this happening? But when you look at what these pay-per-view matches gave today, right? They had around 2.5 stars on almost every front. It's remarkably consistent, because WWE's pay-per-views usually have a couple of good matches and a lot of mediocrity and shit, meaning if they balance out, it's a bit lopsided, you don't feel like you've been entertained the entire way through, it's pretty disappointing, or in some cases really good for some of the good matches skewing the others. But as this night went on, while I was satisfied, I in a way wasn't out and out wowed. I got an entertaining amount of wrestling from it, and I'm not too disappointed in that. Now, no match went below 1 star, and for once, outside of one moment, a non-Big Four crowd actually made the matches feel like they were worth their purpose. So this event didn't feel like it was overstaying its welcome or was underwhelming. It was a pay-per-view that did a decent average job, delivering on not much, but providing the goods. And it didn't go all out either to ensure these rivalries had some freshness going into Extreme Rules next month, where the match quality and intensity should be at an all-time high, I'm hoping. Now, all in all, I'm not disappointed or elated by this decidedly average show, because usually, average shows I've reviewed in the past have a mix of really good matches and really bad ones. Look at WrestleMania 27, for example. That had, 3, 4 3-star matches and a couple of really good 2.5-star ones in there, with 4 zeros padding it out. So that meant, in a way, I kind of had to balance out the good and the bad effectively. In the case of this, however, with every match pretty much hitting around a 2.5-star mark, this overall rating has to reflect it. While one match going from 2 stars to 2.25 in the post-pay-per-view analysis part of me summing and toting everything up, it means, while it's not exactly average, it's pretty much going to be the standard bearer for what an average show is in the future, because I don't think I've had a show like this, where every match bar a couple on the card pretty much come out the same. It's weird, it's unusual, and it means I had a solid, entertaining, average night of wrestling, and I cannot be annoyed with that, because if you are, it proves you are very difficult to please. And if that one guy who commented on my WrestleMania review said, oh, I gave it 7 out of 10, I'm very easy to please, look at how this comes through. You may have thought it was rubbish, but for me, It was decidedly average, and it did enough to make me feel happy about it. Ladies and gentlemen, WWE Payback 2017 may not have reached the lofty heights of its predecessor, but it does attain a respectable and fine 5.25 out of 10. And I said after Fastlane and other pay-per-views in that area that I said that 4 out of 10 was not going to be good enough. So this pay-per-view, reaching a little higher on the mark and made it actually look like it was worth my time, was a good thing. It went 1 rating up and it was great. This is exactly what I want. An above average show would be better, but hey, I'm satisfied with what I got in spite of some problems. I know many of you, though, are going to criticize this show for being flat, and the House of Horrors match was rubbish, and my rating was bad too. I know that. The House of Horrors is obviously going to slant negative equity on this pay-per-view's favour, but you can't win them all, right? And for a night of wrestling, I got enough out of it, and the wrestlers delivered a solid display on all fronts. What can I be angry about? Not that much. This show hit the ground running and kept a steady pace until it crossed the finish line, despite tripping on one pothole. One pothole that is a little bit inconsequential in the long run. I can't fault this event for its efforts, but I expect Backlash and Extreme Rules to be a little bit more than this. So, with what they're building to, I hope I can be appeased more in the upcoming month. And there we are, ladies and gentlemen, the Payback 2017 review is done. What did you all think of that show? I think I gave it a good chance, and overall, despite being really fatigued last night and waking up this morning to watch the rest of it, I enjoyed myself, to a degree. I'm guessing a lot of you will criticise this show, but hey, this is what different opinions and good discussion are for. Put your opinions down in the comment section, I'd be glad to read them, and of course, if you don't want to miss out on any of the wrestling content this channel is doing over the next month, which includes a WrestleMania 19 Friday flashback, a review of Backlash on May the 22nd, and of course the review of Extreme Rules sometime in early June, you can click the subscribe button there and not miss a thing, alongside the episodes of Pones and stuff and the end of the Fur Fighters playthrough as well. This is a multi-content channel if you hadn't noticed already. All good to know. And of course, if you want to know exactly when a lot of those videos are happening, go to the Twitter and follow me there at @CCNetworkYT to ensure you don't miss out on the schedule, which I think by now is already up, so you know when everything is going and all is well. And on that note, Raw, post-WrestleMania, despite its TV product looking quite rubbish, has delivered on pay-per-view. I'm hoping going forward that Extreme Rules does a lot better, but a 5 out of 10-ish show after WrestleMania did roughly a 7 is pretty decent. Come on, Extreme Rules, bring the violence, bring the pain, and hopefully bring home the bacon. I have been Freddie Thomas, you've been people listening, this has been the Payback 2017 WWE pay-per-view review for the CC Network, and I will see you all next time.